My next guest is one of the few people outside of the administration to get classified White House briefings on the military operation in Iran. Republican Arkansas Congressman Rick Crawford chairs the House Select Committee on Intelligence, and he's a member of the Gang of Eight. He just emerged from a briefing at 4 o'clock this afternoon with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Congressman, welcome back to the show. So do you have any clarity? Do you have more clarity on what exactly, precisely this mission is, what the goal is?
Yeah, I think the administration's been pretty clear about what their objective is, and they are engaged in achieving those objectives. Obviously, trying to go after the short-range ballistic missiles first and foremost, their ability to produce those missiles and the stockpile that they currently have. They have been outpacing us on production, and that's a problem for us. So taking out those missile sites in the southern portion of Iran that pose the most serious threat to U.S. assets in the region. Then obviously, the medium range, long range, as well as their nuclear, what's remaining of their nuclear capability. And then, of course, just about disabled their Navy, all but decimated their naval capability, which will prevent them from harassing their Gulf neighbors. So I think this is an ongoing operation. Don't know how long it'll last. They were not speculating on how long that would last, but they were very clear in what had taken place thus far.
Did they mention anything about regime change?
Well, regime change is a welcome byproduct of this engagement. And it's certainly, if you wanted to look at it in the context of a three-legged stool, I would say, yeah, that's probably one of the three legs. The good news is that leg's gone. So this stool can't stand by itself on two legs, and they're about to take out the other two. So this has been, I think, a pretty stellar operation. And so I think, again, we're seeing some pretty exceptional leadership at the Department of War, at the Department of State, and at the presidential level.
Congressman, you and I both come from military families. We already have 6 people who are dead in this war, 18 seriously wounded. The president warned that those numbers of dead and wounded will rise. There's a brand new poll out by CNN that shows 59% of Americans disapprove of these strikes. 60% say they don't think the president has a clear plan. We can hope for a lot of things to happen in Iran, but when it comes to military operations, you are given a clear goal. Doesn't that goal need to be communicated better to the American people if that many people polled don't think the president has a clear plan?
Well, I would say if they're getting their news from CNN, that poll's probably accurate. But for the rest of the country,
hopefully they're getting it here. So
well, that's my point. So hopefully the rest of the country is getting some credible sources and probably don't feel the same way. So I would question the veracity of that poll, but that's neither here nor there. The reality is the president took the initiative to protect the American people by protecting our troops and our assets in the region.
There have been, however, President Trump on Saturday said regime change. Then nobody's talked about regime change. We've heard talk about ballistic missile production and drone production and the Navy. In other words, there needs to be a single clear voice and not changing messages from the president to the Secretary of State to the Secretary of War, yes?
Well, and I think they are all on message on this particular issue. I think Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Rubio, the president have all communicated this very clearly. In fact, I've been here almost 16 years in the House of Representatives. I don't think there's ever been a more transparent administration when it comes to things of this nature. And
so
this
when
is a
do we
good
know,
example.
how do we know it's done? Like, is it only done when all the nukes are destroyed? Because we need people on the ground to make sure all the nukes are destroyed. Is it done when regime changes happen? Because I don't know that we can do that from the air. Are we ready to send boots on the ground? In other words, how do the American people know mission accomplished?
Well, I don't know that what you just said is entirely accurate, that you have to have boots on the ground to decimate their nuclear capability. I don't think that's necessarily true. But what the president has said is he's leaving every option on the table. That's smart strategy. What you don't want to do is telegraph to the enemy what your red lines are, what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. So what he needs to make sure is that every tool that he has at his disposal, that he is making sure that the enemy understands he's willing to use it. So can you take boots on the ground off the table? Probably not. is probably, that's one of those things that you would not telegraph to the enemy. But is it necessary to have boots on the ground to fully degrade the Iranian regime and their capability as it applies to the ability to make war on the region, the ability to produce weapons, the ability to continue to enrich uranium? All those things can be accomplished because we have achieved air superiority over Iran. So now we can go in pretty much with impunity and attack those sites that are the most dangerous and the most problematic for the region.
Yeah, you know, Congressman, that sending American troops into another Middle Eastern country is not going to be an easy sell.
No, and I don't think anybody's trying to sell that. The reality is this is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. And here's the deal. Take a look at who's calling the shots right now.
Okay.
This is, you know, Hegseth is a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq himself. He was there. He understands what's at stake here. So I think you've got a completely different context.
All right. Congressman Crawford, always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.